Usage-based approaches to SLA. Usage-based approaches to second language acquisition are an important framework for understanding how learners acquire a second language. The approach posits that language learning is primarily based on learners' exposure to their L2 in use, that is, the linguistic input they receive. It also asserts that learners induce the rules of their L2 from the input by employing cognitive mechanisms that are not exclusive to language learning, but that are general cognitive mechanisms at work in any kind of learning, including language learning. One of the key constructs of usage-based approaches to SLA is the learning of constructions. Research shows that language learning involves the learning of constructions, pairings of form and meaning or function. These constructions range from simple morphemes like ing to complex, and abstract syntactic frames such as subject, verb, object, object. Furthermore, learners induce the rules of their L2 from the input by employing cognitive mechanisms that are not exclusive to language learning, but that are general cognitive mechanisms at work in any kind of learning. Another important aspect of this approach is associative language learning. Learning constructions means learning the association between form and meaning or function. For example, the sound sequence "s" is reliably associated with a particular meaning, slices of meat and/or cheese between two slices of bread. The form "ing", however, has different meanings, functions in different contexts, making it comparatively harder to learn. By understanding the importance of reliability in association, learners can more effectively acquire the language. Exemplar-based learning is another key construct of usage-based approaches to SLA. This type of learning is implicit and takes place without the learner being consciously aware of it. The learner's brain engages in simple learning mechanisms and distributional analyses of the exemplars of a given form, meaning pair that take various characteristics into consideration, including how frequent it is, what kind of words and phrases and larger contexts it occurs with, and so on. This kind of learning is particularly effective because it is based on the learner's natural ability to recognize patterns and make connections without conscious effort. Rational cognitive processing is also important in language learning. Language learning is rational, and a learner's knowledge of a given form, meaning pair at any point in their language development reflects how often and in what specific contexts the learner has encountered that form, meaning pair. By understanding the underlying mechanisms of language acquisition, learners can more effectively learn the language. Finally, emergent relations and patterns are essential to the usage-based approach. Language learning is a gradual process in which language emerges as a complex and adaptive system from the interaction of simple cognitive learning mechanisms with the input. In this process, learners continuously fine-tune their language abilities based on their interactions with other speakers in various social settings. By understanding the importance of emergent relations and patterns, learners can more effectively adapt to the language and become fluent speakers. To study SLA from a usage-based perspective, a combination of qualitative and quantitative methods is needed. These methods include corpus-based analysis, classroom field research, and psycholinguistic studies of processing. Large, dense, longitudinal corpora of language use are needed for objective study, and a growing number of computer tools are available to assist researchers in analyzing corpus data. These tools cover a range of analysis types, from fine-grained conversation analysis to large-scale quantitative analysis of distributional patterns. In conclusion, usage-based approaches to SLA prioritize exposure to the language, association, rational cognitive processing, exemplar-based learning, and the emergence of relations and patterns in the acquisition of a second language. By using a combination of qualitative and quantitative methods, researchers can gain a more comprehensive understanding of the complex processes involved in SLA, and learners can more effectively acquire the language and become fluent speakers. However, it is important to note that there are still many unanswered questions in the field. Future research should focus on developing a more comprehensive understanding of the relationship between input and language development, as well as the role of individual differences in language learning. Ultimately, a better understanding of these issues will lead to more effective language learning strategies and improved outcomes for language learners. Additionally, usage-based approaches to SLA have important implications for language teaching and learning. By prioritizing exposure, association, and exemplar-based learning, language teachers can design more effective language learning programs. For example, teachers can provide learners with a range of authentic language input, and create opportunities for learners to use the language in meaningful contexts. This can help learners to develop their language skills more quickly, and effectively. Furthermore, by understanding the importance of emergent relations and patterns, teachers can help learners to develop their language abilities in a more holistic way. This can improve learners' overall language proficiency and help them to communicate more effectively in the language. It is also important to note that language learning is not a one-size-fits-all process. Different learners have different learning styles, preferences, and abilities. Therefore, it is important for language teachers to be flexible and adaptable in their teaching approaches. By recognizing and responding to the individual needs of learners, teachers can create a more inclusive and effective learning environment. In conclusion, usage-based approaches to SLA offer a valuable framework for understanding how learners acquire a second language. By prioritizing exposure, association, rational cognitive processing, exemplar-based learning, and the emergence of relations and patterns, researchers and language teachers can develop more effective language learning programs and strategies. Ultimately, this can lead to improved outcomes for language learners and help more people to become fluent speakers of a second language.